everybody, welcome to What the Flick, talking about Westworld, Season 1, Episode 3, The Stray. Tim, Bibbs, Alonso. Okay, was that a robot in the barn, or was that a human in the barn?
It was
that
a robot.
got shot?
They got
It was
shot.
a robot. I thought we'd seen him before. Yeah,
It was a robot.
We've
Okay.
seen him before.
I wasn't entirely sure.
So the idea is this is the system. This is the story they go through when no one is around.
Right.
And it happens. She gets sexually assaulted every single night. She's sick of it. Boom.
Yes. No. I get that. It's funny. I was watching this with my friend Gary last night. And he goes, "Oh my God!" She was like, "This robot was created to be raped," and I said, "Yes," and she was the first one.
Yeah.
Like that was the launching pad for this fucking park.
But she has.
Let's make sure we get the rape down, and everything else will follow.
Exactly.
The implication, though, is that she's played other roles, though. This isn't necessarily the only storyline she's
that's
ever
true,
done,
yeah.
so maybe we'll see other scenarios play out.
But to your credit, this was the first episode where I was confused as to what was happening when exactly.
Right.
And on purpose, we see Dolores like experiencing the same thing and entering and exiting various levels of consciousness about it.
Remembering the man in black and all that
being
kind of thing.
shot and then being not shot and
Yeah.
having the opportunity to run away because she remembers what happens next.
And even just her whole speech about how someday is synonymous with never.
Yeah.
Which is a great speech even in a vacuum. And in her instance, it makes perfect sense and it's great in the context of the show.
it was good when Bill Murray gave it too on Groundhog Day.
There you go.
Like, oh, tomorrow, no, we can't hang out tomorrow.
Hang on. I had a question. You carry on.
Okay,
I'll come back to it.
I think the cleverest thing that this episode did, at least as far as I can see so far, we haven't seen the big picture yet. We saw Ford, Anthony Hopkins, give James
Marsden.
Bernard.
Bernard.
No, backstory.
Teddy. He finally gets a backstory.
Yes.
I'm sorry, we created you. All you need to do is serve a dramatic function. Now you need a backstory, which is basically how a lot of TV gets written. I hate to tell you how the sausage gets made. And sure enough, they give him a backstory. He's got an arch nemesis, whatever. This is also the episode where we find out that Ford has a backstory, and so does Jeffrey Wright. I don't know if that's
fascinating.
I don't know if that's meta or a clue, and I think that's kind of the beauty of Westworld right now. I hope that doesn't become insufferable like 4 seasons in. I hope they pay off enough at some point, but right now it's just fascinating.
The Arnold speech is a lot of exposition.
Yeah.
And you got to wonder
And
how
it's told
much
exactly the same way as Teddy's is. Like we have these convenient, narrative flashback type
CPI
things,
flashbacks, yeah,
which
yeah,
are
yeah.
brilliant-looking young Anthony Hopkins, by the way.
That's some pretty good de-aging.
It's pretty good.
I've seen some better and worse, but that was not bad.
It's pretty decent. It's no Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War, which I thought was pretty spot on.
That was a good one. Michael Douglas
in
and
Ant-Man.
Yeah,
Oh my
some of the
God.
best
Marvel
ones,
is doing
yeah.
it really, really great. But yeah, that whole speech about how there was another guy who helped design the robots. He seems to have killed himself. I don't trust a word of that speech at all. That guy is like in the park somewhere, accumulating power in secret.
Oh,
and
you think he's still alive?
He might be.
I don't even think he's real.
What if he downloaded himself into one of the robots? What if Anthony Hopkins is a robot that guy created and that he's actually inside the Anthony Hopkins
Then now
body?
I'm very confused
This
at the
could,
age.
it could be anything
It's
to
true.
the extent that it's almost not interesting.
By the way-
because there's so many possibilities,
God.
and it could be literally any one of them.
By the way, when Anthony Hopkins says that line about print the legend, he's quoting The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Great movie.
A classic Western.
Yeah.
I'm glad I have you guys here.
No, the thing I was my question from before about Dolores was when Teddy tries to teach her to shoot and she can't, and then later she can, and I was trying to figure out is it that Teddy's gun, is that the kind of gun that robots use and she's not programmed to do so, whereas the gun that she's got that she found in the drawer is a gun that anybody can shoot if they're physically capable to squeeze the trigger.
I read it as her moving outside of her permissions.
That's what I thought too.
That
Okay,
it was
I was
a
just-
mistake in her programming that she actually overcome what she was allowed or not allowed to
Right,
do.
which
That gun
begins
could
with
still
her
be-
killing the fly in the first episode.
That gun could still be a gun. I'm not.
A gun.
You know what I mean.
But
Yeah,
you'd
it's-
think
yeah.
then that they would know right away if she killed a host with a gun and they bring it in for repairs. They're like, who shot this guy? That's not part of the narrative.
Yeah,
also,
there's a
he's got a
bullet in
real
here.
bullet in him.
Well, they haven't done that yet, and now that she's like, basically, we have two guys. We have Ben Barnes and Jimmy
Simpson.
Logan and William.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Thank you for writing these things down. This is great. But they're waiting out in the desert for their next point of interest. They're waiting for the next part of their game. She comes in. They might think this is the narrative. They might not realize that they're on a hero's quest to get the ring to Mordor as far as we, the audience, are concerned. Here's a woman who is on the run. She's completely glitching out as far as most of the people behind the scenes are concerned.
Oh, so her genuine crisis they'll perceive as being a plot-driven thing?
That's my thought. That makes sense to me,
yeah.
and then that's going to lead them some confusion. Who's Jimmy playing again?
William.
Oh, there you go. But William is, William is actually very inclined to sort of treat the plight of the robots very, very seriously.
Yeah.
Either because he's just a nice person or because that's just how he's playing the game. And so this actually is an interesting position to put
It's going to move forward her new improv narrative where she wants to get free or whatever she wants to do.
She might not even know what she wants to do. She just knows she doesn't want to live
She doesn't want to get raped and shot
every night in the barn. Yeah.
Who would?
Let's talk about baby Jessica in the well, the guy who's trapped in the cave. Is this the first time a robot has committed suicide? Is that what we're supposed to take from that?
It's certainly a horrifying way to do it.
Yeah, I know.
was very
Not
shocked.
a clean break there.
It's not the first time that a robot has woken up when it's supposed to not, though.
Well, that's
We
true.
see that happening all the time now.
And presumably robots have gotten destroyed by accident. I mean, my first thought was there was a small glitch and he just wound up in a hole and he couldn't get out of it, and that's why the storyline couldn't progress. But
I mean, the willfully pounding himself on the head with the boulder.
No, I'm saying it built into something different. And we talk a lot about how maybe there's programming in the various robots' heads that they perceive as God, that they perceive as outside of themselves. That could actually drive them insane. We're starting to see how inklings of consciousness, of self-awareness, are making people defy what the world is for them, and killing yourself is one way out of that. It's a horrifying way out.
True.
But imagine if you, I, or anyone else just started seeing the cracks in reality, our actual reality, you there at home, and it's just all of a sudden just people started ripping their faces off and they were robots or something. You'd want out. You'd want to solve the mystery. You'd want to do something, and that level of absolute madness that would come from it makes sense.
This is
It's
definitely getting Matrixy.
Oh yeah.
As far as levels of reality go. Although again, with the employees, when the guy's coming at it with the rock, why don't all the employees know the deep and dreamless slumber tactic to shut off robots? People seem to be constantly caught by surprise. And
if it didn't work from the tablet, though, I mean, you think she would have tried
right,
it.
but it seems like she didn't know it. The guys who were operating on Maeve didn't know it. It's that seemed to be a handy thing for employees to have in case as a final failsafe.
Yeah.
I wonder if big ass rocks are part of weapons permissions,
the axe
if he knows he's going back and being put to sleep again. Would he then try to end his own life the only way that he knew how?
Just to get out of the loop?
Yeah, just to remove himself from the system because he's sick of getting shot in the assault on Sweetwater every single fucking week. So
what do we think the Orion significance is?
There's a question of whether or not Orion in itself is significant, or just the fact that they are completely moving outside of their programming. I don't know if it's the former. If it's Orion itself is a metaphor for something, maybe it's a clue, maybe it's part of that sub-game or something.
Yeah.
Maybe something to do with that, something that's sort of underlying the Westworld programming. And if it's not, then it's just we're all of us in the gutter and some of us are looking up at the stars. There's looking for meaning in the universe. You look up.
My only thought was that it's some sort of navigational symbol, the way that people travel by the North Star or whatever, that maybe the position of Orion, it shows where the maze is, or is some key to something. I don't know.
It might very well be.
Yeah.
I'd be very curious to see. Are we forgetting anything in this episode?
Something that occurred to me this time, just because there's as we always point out, there's so many of these robots that are there to have sex with the visitors. Do they have, not pheromones exactly, but do they have an aroma that they smell like people and not latex? I mean, because that seems like that would be a big thing. If you're having sex with a robot and you're supposed to try and pretend that it's a human being, smell plays into it.
I guess it's smell is the sort of thing that a lot of movies and television don't bother with. At most you'll see people go, "Oh, that smells," but it's such a ubiquitous sensation in our regular life that applying it to cinema and TV, sometimes you realize just how little the filmmakers really care.
True.
And really that they're actually thinking about. How many times have you seen characters in a movie in a sewer? Like,
Yeah,
I
and never
I'd go
comment
like,
upon
oh, it's a little stinky. Like, no, you would be vomiting. Like, there's no way the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles aren't spending their entire lives vomiting.
Oh, well, no, they grew up there, so they're used to it.
I don't think you get that used to it.
It's their fresh air.
It's
but
New York City.
No, I Am Love.
bad
I Am Love
sewer.
is a great movie that deals with the sense of smell, and
Okay.
that scene in Silence of the Lambs where they have to put the Vapo Rub on because they're handling corpses. But
That's
you're right,
true.
it doesn't come up very often.
So,
Yeah.
so to the idea of smell, they do encounter 3 hosts tied to a tree, dead, almost dead,
Right.
and everyone reacts to the smell. So, assuming that those hosts aren't always there on that tree,
Yeah.
they have a smell, they have an odor.
And they're
The
emitting
humans-
something that's attracting flies,
Yeah.
whatever
Yes.
the fake blood
a
is.
Or are the-
fly that Teddy swats at
Or
in this episode.
are the flies robots?
Well, I'm not sure that any of the flies aren't robots.
Well, I guess my point is, like, if you recall on the original Westworld movie, the rattlesnake is considered a part of the park.
Right.
And
It's
the
a robot.
rattlesnake that Ford controls in the last
Oh, yeah,
episode
we've seen the
is
rattlesnake
also,
here,
is
too,
also
yeah.
part of the park.
Is that true for everything? Like, is all the vegetation fake as well? It's a reasonable question to ask.
And again, as I like to ask every week, what planet are we even on?
yeah, they talk about, oh, we can't get a reception out here. It's like, you're in the desert in the future. I'm sure they would have put up a cell phone tower for
Yeah,
you
and
guys.
made it look like a water tank or
Yeah.
a church steeple
You
or
would
something.
you would have done that. So it really does add credence to the possibility that this isn't even Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm sure visitors would probably surrender their phones just for the full immersion to the 19th century experience. But staff, come
They
on.
they would need the reception. They would need to communicate with people.
Did y'all recognize the actress playing Jeffrey Wright's wife?
Gina Torres from Firefly and
That's
Hannibal.
it. Thank
Yeah.
you. It was driving me nuts. It was not on IMDb. I'm like, I know her.
And Cleopatra 2525, one of the best shows ever made.
That one I missed, but
It was so great.
she was terrific on Hannibal. Yes.
I'm exaggerating slightly.
All right. Any giant questions for next time?
It's all giant questions. It's Westworld.
Yeah, I
true.
just want to speculate more about Ford and his deal because we don't trust his story.
Right.
Is Arnold real or is he a fabricated backstory? If so, for whom?
Yeah.
Is like him making a partner that was scrubbed from the record like an excuse to like do stuff behind the scenes, like oh glitches in the code? It's probably just Arnold stuff left over.
What's really weird about Ford is that he started exhibiting some really inconsistent behavior. And
Right.
I would normally say this is like a character flaw or that maybe they changed his character after the pilot.
Or
but
was I projecting the whole time when I was like, oh, he definitely wants these robots to evolve? Now he's like, hey, they're not awake. You shouldn't read into this
they're
anymore
not
than
yeah,
you do.
they're not human. You should not treat them with any dignity or respect. Now he's not saying that.
Yeah.
Is that just, we changed an idea a little bit in the pilot, it's a little different? Or is that a plot point? Is Ford been replaced? Does Ford have an agenda that's really different with Jeffrey Wright? Is Jeffrey Wright's character one of the robots and that's part of his experiment? Maybe that's what's going on?
So I think it's telling when the really out of place scene that like takes you by surprise right away is when he talks to the new engineer that had covered the host
Right,
with a
right.
towel, and he pulls it off and cuts his face. Like that's some cold ass shit. And then that parallels really well with Bernard. His regular meetings with Dolores. Dolores is clothed every single time.
Right.
So he feels the same way that the other engineer does.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A sense of dignity, or he doesn't want to
Well,
talk to Dolores when she's totally
that's a really
naked.
good
He
point.
Well, yeah, but
treats her as a
also
human.
he's treating Dolores as a much needed ear, like like a sympathetic ear to talk to about his issue, about the whole thing about his kid and just his life in general. That obviously he still has the conversations with the wife are still very awkward. They're both still grappling with a lot of tragedy, and so he's sort of turned Dolores into.
Therapist
a
or-
therapist, a compatriot, something like
and
that.
also a child.
Yeah, exactly. Or as a surrogate child for that matter. And
which
all
Ford
of that
picked up on.
Yes, but all of that ties into, I think, treating her as a human being and not playing up the fact that she's synthetic, and that's why he treats her with that sense of decorum and always makes sure she's clothed and all that stuff.
Yeah, which ultimately boils down to, screw it, do what you want. Let's see what happens. I don't care about Westworld anymore. How much did it cost? How much could it have possibly cost? Let's break it all.
Bernard, don't make the same mistakes that we made before. I think I'm gonna make the same mistakes that we made before.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, it's a fool that doesn't learn from their own mistakes. It's an idiot who doesn't learn from the mistakes of other people.
I suppose. But
I don't remember if on these reviews we've talked about the Man in Black theory with William and the age difference, and some people think some people think they're the same person. Did we talk about that at all?
I'm not sure I buy that.
The Man in Blacks have like flash forwards or something.
That
and it's-
the Man in Black time with all the employees doing what they're doing right now, and the Williams scenes, which happened 30 years ago.
No, I don't buy that because we see that
No, because
Dolores has memories of the Man in Black as an old man.
Right.
And, then
the
we see her.
and the
meet
employees
him
have
young man.
monitored the Man in Black. The current employees have monitored the Man
Yeah.
in Black, like killing all of those people. So this is happening
I don't buy
concurrently.
it. I don't buy that there. If it ends up being that'd be interesting,
Before
but-
this episode, you could say that all of the Williams scenes were separate from all of the modern scenes.
you could,
I think this episode, though, breaks that theory with Dolores showing
it's
up in the middle
totally
of the night.
broken in this
Yeah.
episode.
Okay.
I'm not sure I
think
bought it
this-
before.
I'm glad
but
we all
definitely
agree on
doesn't.
No,
Yeah.
it's all concurrent. All right, so yeah, there's obviously a lot to talk about, and we'll be back next week with more. So hope you'll join us.